right, hello again. So, sorry it's been a while since my last video. I got a little bit distracted, as summer tends to do to people. But I did want to come back and I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of these excerpts. Today we'll be talking about the Tchaikovsky Romeo and Juliet excerpts, of which there are two. The first one looks a little weird because it's half at bottom of a page and top of a page, of course, and so I kind of spliced it together. However you print it, basically. I printed mine this way because it just tended to work out a little bit easier. But either way, either first violin or second violin, we have exactly the exact same part, just one's down an octave, one's up an octave. So anything that I talk about for the first violin excerpt, other than a bunch of the shifting, does pertain to the second violin excerpt as well. And then the other one, of course, this one right here, it should say at the top, you'll see it, Tchaikovsky, Romeo and Juliet, and looks a little bit something like this. For those of you who have not heard this overture, this fantasy overture, I would definitely listen to it. And if you need to, even brush up a little bit on your Romeo and Juliet, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff that he takes from the book and puts to music, which is really cool. And it's good to have that kind of context sometimes when we're playing stuff, because what we do a lot of the times, especially as first violinists, is very technique heavy, shifting, making sure your bow's in the right place. Having that idea of the overall context of the art, I think, is super helpful for, the more artsy part, when we get to put some vibrato in there. Maybe how we work on one passage or another is going to depend on how eventually we want to play it, right? So it is a good idea, I think, to listen to them. If not, well, actually, do. But I will give you the timestamps anyway, just so that you can listen to those in particular a few times. This one will be around 14 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, of course, it might change depending on which one you use. I think this is another one of those Wicked North videos, timestamps. So 14 minutes and 30, about 14 minutes in, basically, I would start listening, and you'll hear it. The second one is 16 minutes and 30 seconds in, so they're not too far from each other, right? First one, this one, is the love theme, which I'm sure if you listen to it, if you started playing it, you're probably like, oh, I definitely know this. It's a very famous melody, of course. Da, 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 da. Now, Tchaikovsky's using that theme in particular as a kind of foil to all the craziness going on, because if you know the story of Romeo and Juliet, there's like a couple of really, nice little love scenes, and the rest is two families fighting into the death, basically. So in the middle of all this, we get this beautiful melody. Now, it really does kind of come out of the middle of nowhere. I think maybe Tchaikovsky and maybe even Shakespeare to an extent is kind of using that, that love between Romeo and Juliet. It's kind of a foil to all the crazy stuff going on between the two families. Probably extrapolate that out maybe to society at large, or any groups of people, basically. A lot of fighting going on, but of course some tenderness can happen. That being said, if you look at that beginning part there, where it kind of ramps up, we have the triplets, 8th notes, and they turn into the 16th notes. That's going to feel a little bit like we're kind of rushing to get to the top and then suddenly pulling down, because it comes out of all this craziness, and then and then we've got to kind of slow down a little bit. I'll give it a try to play it a little bit so that you can get the idea. And I do think that that is important. So when you're doing your audition video, don't just play that first part like a scale. We want it to have a good meaning in the music. And Joel, Dr. Nevis, will be listening for that. I'll give it a go. That one is over with. Probably know most of the things going on in there. Very important, watch out for that F natural to G natural going on in those 16th notes. It's very chromatic, and that will kind of throw people. So just make sure that you've got that on the top 4 16th notes in that first measure. F natural to G natural. I'll play the notes so that you have them in your head. There we go. It's a little bit weird sounding, so do make sure that you watch out for that when you're practicing it. Okay, the rest of it, pretty self-explanatory. Main thing is to watch out for those dynamics underneath, especially as we get to that high part there. That's a very dramatic spot. Where also, you want to listen to the recording, because he does, and Joel will do this too, Dr. Nevis will, he will pull back when we get to those da-da spots, right? It's supposed to be a little bit emotional. I'll play from the second page, quote unquote. I'll start from the top there. You heard there, I kind of backed up a little bit. Da, da, da. He loves that drama. So you put it in there, you can get extra points. Okay, so that's that excerpt. Let's talk a little bit about the other one now. So this one, the main thing is kind of just like the Tempest Overture. It's a lot of chromaticism. So if you know any right-hand piano, it's definitely going to come in handy. We'll go over a couple of these spots. The very first thing, make sure you know you're in harmonic minor at the beginning. I'll play just a little bit. I'm going to skip those first two notes. I will start on that bottom D, and I'll play it a little slow so that you can hear it. Here it goes. Make sure you get that augmented second in there because it's very important, right? Okay, and then of course it happens again also when we go down and we do it again, so I'll play that one. When you get up there to the top, you want to make sure that you have that half step in there because it's a pretty charged little half step. Let's see. In terms of the shifting and all that, the main thing is just to watch out for the notes. Like I said, I'll play a couple of them. Most of them, I think, make perfect sense, so I don't want to go over every tiny little thing. Let's go ahead, though, and let's go from that spot that I just stopped on that, like, what is that, a high C? A, B, C, yes, a high C. Sharp. That part's not that hard. The main thing about it is those, when you have to jump up and hit that G flat and then jump up and hit that A flat, because we're using so many chromatic notes, it's gonna sound a little weird to the ear. So I wanna take that again from the B flat. I'll show you where it's at. I'm gonna play it on piano so that you can really get those notes in your ear. Right here is where I'm gonna start, just so that we can kind of really listen for those notes. Let me do it for you. Start with that B flat. And we go all the way up to a G flat. B natural. A flat at the top. And now here's where it gets really chromatic. You gotta watch that F sharp that turns into a F natural. Then we get to that little ramp up spot right there. I'm gonna keep going just so we get it in our ear. Sharp. Natural. Sharp. Now D sharp. Now we go to the F sharp. Now E sharp, which we know is also an F natural. Uh-oh, I lost my place. There we go. G sharp. B flat. Now this is probably the hardest part. right there. We got to make sure we don't go too high for that C, and then it goes back to a B natural, right? So I'll do it one more time. I'll play it on violin just so we can hear the different timbres. Gotta find it first. I'm gonna make sure. That should sound very familiar because that B is the same up top as it is 2 octaves down, 1 octave down. So it's the same exact note there. Then of course as we go up, so then the last 2 lines there is still very chromatic. So definitely take your time really getting your fingers in the right place, starting out slow, speeding it up, all that kind of stuff. I'm mostly just going over the notes here because I went over a lot of those techniques in the last video. But if you do need any help with anything, of course you can get a hold of me. I'll give you some more tips and tricks. Or you can go back and watch that other video because I have a lot of stuff in there for practicing that. For instance, maybe this little ramp up spot, that line I just played. Doing something like that just so you have enough time to think about the note that comes next. And the most important part is we're kind of like singers when we get way up high on the E string like that. We have to use our ear to find the notes, right? So just having them really in your ear and knowing what notes they are is like half the battle. Okay, the last 2 lines. We have that chord. You can either jump down in first position and play all the notes, or you can just pick the top 2. We do that a lot in orchestras. Anyway, then... a little bit sounds a little bit weird, right? Make sure you got that in your ear. Now here's where it gets really chromatic. So I have a fingering written in. I would recommend using that fingering or anything that'll give you the same notes, but be careful because there's a lot of bendy fingers. Okay. So we'll go kind of backwards and talk about a couple of those notes. On the last line, the last 2 measures, make sure that we have that A sharp. The B sharp is also a C natural, and then we go to a C sharp. Sometimes when I have inharmonic spellings, I just use the note, the finger that I would use on the different spelling of the note. For instance, that A flat or that A sharp is the same as a B flat. So in other words, you can use, instead of having to do a weird high 1, you can just use a low 2. From that A sharp to a B sharp is going to be a whole step. And then to the C sharp is going to be a half step. Which is a lot easier than weird bendy fingers. At least I think so. Okay. Then backing up from that, I think we can probably figure most of that stuff out. Let's talk about the 2 measures. The second to last line, last measure, and the first measure of the last line there, just because they are goofy. I play it in second position. That way I can get a nice, easy, augmented second there. Then I just pop over, because that 2 is already in place, since I already played a A sharp on the E string. Then my 2 is already prepared to play a D sharp. Now, it might look like I need to move my 1, but because that's a B sharp, it's the same as a C, I'm already in second position, so I just move my finger over. Now you gotta watch out for that E, it's very low. Then I just jump into first. Now I do a 4 on that A sharp instead of a low 1 there, because it'll be quicker when I'm moving super fast. I should move fast. So you get the idea. Okay, let's see. About the only thing really also is spend the time, of course, getting up and down the fingerboard, really listening, getting the notes in tune and all that kind of stuff. Then make sure you follow those dynamics. This is the battle scene, right? At some point in here, I don't remember where, but I think Mercutio stabs Tybalt. Does Tybalt stab Mercutio? One of them stabs one of the other ones. I don't remember now. I'll have to go back and read the story. But it's supposed to be very dramatic, right? Because it's a sword fight and somebody's about to die. So make sure you follow those dynamics. It's a pretty fast and furious little passage here. But okay, good luck practicing. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I hopefully will be able to help. Happy practicing.